The video game industry is amazing, and we can all agree in the fact that it should be considered as art as much as cinema is. However, one main problem with video games is that, just like the movies, some titles are pretty much underrated by a lot of people. This could be because of different things. Maybe the game introduced a new, fresh idea that people didn't like at the time. Maybe the game had a few flaws here and there that reviewers exaggerated, or maybe people just weren't attracted to the game. So, I'll show you here 5 games that I think you should give more attention, or even stop hating, because they may not be as bad as you think. So, are you ready? And let's begin this underrated countdown. When a video game series has a lot of success, it instantly gets a spin-off. A good example can be Mario and his big amounts of spin-offs. So, after the enormous success of Pokemon Red and Blue on the Game Boy, everybody was excited for a 3D Pokemon RPG for the Nintendo 64. So, even though the Pokemon Stadium series were loved later, the first N64 Pokemon game we received was Pokemon Snap, and it disappointed a lot of people. Actually, that's stupid. Many people hated the Snap at the time because it's a photographic game rather than your average Pokemon RPG. But is that a bad thing? This was the first spin-off in the series and I think it was amazing. You not only take photos of Pokemon, you can also unlock different items like apples or a Pokeflute that will help you in your quest so you can discover more monsters and take more photos. Oh, and every level on this game looks really beautiful, and they managed to make up an excellent atmosphere, especially with the help of that great music. As far as it concerns me, apart from the fact that this game is not your typical Pokemon game, Pokemon Snap is underrated because a lot of people think the idea of a photographic game is stupid. Well, I have to say that
you are made of stupid.
I mean, who had never dreamed of being in a Pokemon world? And this new mechanic perfectly makes you feel inside one. Also, the items will help you in a way so you can actually interact with the monsters. That made it something more than just a photographic game, and it could make up for some challenge. Yeah, while this game was short and had only like 60 Pokemon, it's only number 5 because most fans actually loved it and want a sequel. Well, I can see one in the upcoming Wii U, don't you? In conclusion, Pokemon Snap is an underrated gem with addictive gameplay, tons of secrets, beautiful environments, and an original premise that should receive more love. In the video game community, we can all agree that movie license games are vomited. I mean, they are bad. Like, really bad. However, when a movie license game manages to be actually good, it gets into players' minds forever. Some examples may be GoldenEye 64, Spider-Man 2, or Batman for the NES. But I think there's an excellent movie license game that people overlook although critics loved it, and it should get more attention. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the video game. First, let's start with the obvious. It's King Kong, one of the most recognizable and amazing movie icons ever made. But even without him, this game will still rock. Peter Jackson's game is divided in 2 parts. The first one is a first-person shooter in the jungle with a group of characters from the movie.
No.
Oh, hold on there. This is not your typical FPS. In this game you will have to rely on the weapons and ammo you find on the island, and use it to destroy dinosaurs and other creatures. The game does not show your health or your ammo, so if you run out of it, you'll have to improvise with sticks or spears you find in the place. These characteristics make it a really fun game, especially since you'll find yourself in outstanding scenes full of monsters and madness. The second half of the game is a third-person action adventure in which you use King Kong to protect yourself and your beloved human girl. Since he is an ape, you will find yourself in fun platforming stages, and since he is a giant gorilla, he can also beat the crap out of other monsters with his bare fists. You have no idea of how much fun this is.
Yay!
Like I said before, this game is underrated, not because people hate it, but rather because it doesn't get too much attention. And the best thing about Peter Jackson's King Kong the game, it actually follows the story of the movie. Yeah, that's something most movie games don't do. That's why this game rocks. I had always been neutral about Princess Peach. While I think she is cute, I hate how she's always the damsel in distress for Mario, with the exception of some party and card games.
Good morning, slut!
So when I heard she was finally having her chance to stop being a whore and be a heroine, I was excited. Super Princess Peach was a game for the Nintendo DS that was pretty much ignored or hated because of the concept of playing as Peach. Really? Before complaining about this, let's look at the game. In Super Princess Peach, you control the princess with the help of her new talking umbrella, Perry. Perry can use different abilities to help her through her adventure of saving Mario from Bowser, but Perry is not Peach's best gadget. She can use 4 different vibes that give her special abilities. Joy lets her fly, Rage sets her on fire, Gloom lets her use her tears as water, and Calm restores her HP. This new formula fits the princess and makes up from some fun platforming. So why did people ignore this game? Well, apart from hating the fact you play as Peach, many people say this game is sexist because Peach vibes are similar to women's premenstrual syndrome. Really? Are you fucking serious?
Really? Really?
Nintendo came up with a fun new mechanic to make the game funny and you complain because of that? Well, that actually shows how some people will make any excuse to bash something they don't like. Also, although you play as Peach and you have to say Mario, this game was not very shocking to gamers as much as it should have done, and it became one of most obscure Mario games. That's sad because Super Princess Peach will make you love the princess even more after you played it. One of my favorite games of all time must be War of the Monsters. What is War of the Monsters, you say? Well, that's the whole point of this countdown. Yeah, War of the Monsters was a PlayStation 2 exclusive title in which a group of monsters beat the crap out of each other. Yeah, this game is a fighting game, but it's different from anything you had seen. You fight in enormous cities and you not only kick and punch your opponents, you should also rely on the different power-ups and structures on the field to beat them. This fighting system can be really entertaining, especially with friends.
You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier.
Each monster has an excellent design and a few lockable costumes that homage a movie monster from the 80s or the 90s, like my friend Togera, a mixture between a lizard and Baraka from MK that clearly represents Godzilla, or Kongar, who is supposed to be like King Kong, though he is cooler. And well, I won't show you more monsters since you should play the game to fall in love with them. The only bad thing about War of the Monsters is the fact that the story mode is the same for every monster.
That's just sad.
But don't worry, you will want to play as every one of them just to unlock the clips that show each one's backstory. Overall, War of the Monsters is not hated, it's just ignored and it should receive more attention. But before we get to number 1, I got 2 questions for Sony. First, where's the sequel to this game? I mean, it was not very popular, but it sure created a fan base that would love a second game. I mean, the story mode ended with a freaking cliffhanger! Secondly, why don't you put something from War of the Monsters in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale? This game was made by Incognito Entertainment, creators of Twisted Metal, and Sweet Tooth is already there, so I can see them putting a monster as a playable character, a background NPC, or a boss in story mode. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Oh, and it would be cool to have Crash Bandicoot there. Speaking of which...
Bye-bye!
In the subject of Crash Bandicoot, I had just made a top 10 Crash Bandicoot games list, so I thought some Crash games were pretty underrated, and they could go on here. I thought of True Insanity for number 1, but then I realized that game is pretty loved amongst fans, so then I thought of Crash of the Titans, but I decided to forgive the hatred toward this game, since I understand it's more a hack and slash game rather than a Crash platformer. Okay, so the most underrated game I've ever played must be Crash Mind Over Mutant. Oh yeah, I'm sure many people hate this game because of the bad impression they got from Titans, but they should play it to find out that it isn't that bad. In Crash Mind Over Mutant, the mutants look a lot smoother. Really, their designs are more original, pretty, and a lot less generic. But what made them better is that their abilities are used more for platforming rather than attacking enemies. Now you have to use your monsters cleverly in order to beat the game. Oh, and note the game has a big beautiful overworld in which mutants live. With the new mechanic that lets Crash store monsters like Pokemon, you can go and catch one so then you can use it on another place. Oh, and it may win the prize for the best cutscenes in video game history, but I already talked about that in the last video. All these features make Mind Over Mutant an excellent game, so why it is so hated? Well, let's say something here. This game will never be as good as the old Crash games. But is this new gameplay really that bad? I mean, I've seen so much people saying Crash is dead because of this game and its predecessor. What the fuck? This game was not that bad, for the love of God. Only because it's different doesn't mean it sucks. Heck, I even saw someone saying this game was worse than Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. What? Seriously? Are you comparing Mind Over Mutant with that piece of shit? On the subject of Sonic, I think Crash Bandicoot fans should learn from Sonic fans. I mean, after the original Genesis and Dreamcast games, the Blue Hedgehog received a lot of 3D games that were bashed over the world, but Sonic fans were optimistic and they ignored the critics, and I've seen most of them loving these new games. Well, maybe with the exception of Sonic 2006, but later they received new masterpieces from Sonic like Sonic Colors or Sonic Generations. So, what happened, Crash fans? Only because two new games were not as amazing as the old ones, we have the right to say Crash is dead? Hell no. I think you should reconsider playing them and maybe you will see that they are not as bad. And even if you still don't like them, Crash is not dead. He's just there, waiting for Activision to do something with him. If we show ourselves optimistic, maybe we will hear us and make more Crash games with the old style gameplay. Sorry for that speech, but as I said in my previous countdown, we need a new Crash Bandicoot game, and I think Crash fans should reunite in order to convince Activision. I'm a serious fan, and I have faith in you. Thanks for watching.